Hi, everyone, and welcome to Connecting with God. We're so thankful that you're giving us a few minutes today, and we want to try to help you elevate your spiritual understanding. In this video, I wanted us to look at 4 things that you need to know about hell. Now, I think 2 conditions have kind of contributed to a cooling off, if you will, about people's belief in hell. The first one is just simply the abundance of false doctrines about hell. There's lots of people, lots of churches who are teaching and preaching that hell is just something that's temporary, that once the judgment comes, then you're going to be judged and maybe you'll be judged unrighteous, but that journey in hell is going to be temporary. It's over in just a moment. A lot of other churches believe that you can't teach about hell because God is so loving, and God, being so loving, could not possibly send people to hell. So that's contributed to, like I said, kind of this cooling off about the nature of hell. Secondly, in our society, hell has kind of become a slang word, and we use it to try to describe things that we don't like. Maybe it's our job or the traffic or something like that. Maybe even sometimes it's something extremely severe, like the common idea that war is hell. But in using it as a slang word, what we've kind of done is deprecate its true meaning and the true force that's behind it, at least from a New Testament perspective, and we shouldn't be doing that. Surveys show that not nearly as many people believe in hell as do heaven. In fact, one that I had seen says that only about 58% of people believe in hell, while over 70% of people believe in heaven. But a fear of hell is necessary because a fear of hell accurately leads to a fear of God. Let's look at Matthew chapter 10, verse 28. And do not fear those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul, but rather fear him who is able to destroy both soul and body in hell. Once the fear of hell is gone, the fear of God goes along right with it. So we don't need to lose our respect for hell. So because of this, I want us to look at 4 facts that you need to know about hell from a New Testament perspective. So let's get started. Now, the first idea is the nature of hell. Jesus came to save people from hell. Jesus talked about hell a lot. In fact, when you kind of tabulate it through the Gospels, Jesus spoke more about hell than he did about heaven. That's probably pretty amazing, right? But it's true. The words that he used to describe hell, to me, leave no doubt about what kind of place that it really is. And I want to run through 4 of them for you now. The first one is everlasting fire, and this is found mainly in Revelation chapter 20 and verse 10, and also in verses 14 and 15. Now, obviously, the idea of fire is readily apparent to us. I mean, we immediately know what that means. No one who has any normal reflexes, once they come into contact, are going to want to stay in contact with fire. So the idea behind this is just one of torment and of punishment. It doesn't mean that when we leave this earthly realm that it's going to be physical fire. It's just a way to try to describe it. And this description, at least in my mind, brings it clearly to the forefront of being a place of torment. The second expression is where the worm does not die. Now, 3 times in Mark chapter 9, verses 43 through 48, Jesus uses this phrase to describe hell. Now, this has a really interesting background. The word hell in that passage is from the Greek word Gehenna, and that means the valley of Hinnom. And it was a valley that was just to the south of the city of Jerusalem. It was basically their garbage dump. Now, the Valley of Hinnom, originally back in the Old Testament, was a place where some of the kings back then, who were wicked kings and idolatrous kings, set up places where they could worship to their gods. They could burn sacrifices to their gods, including even children, sacrificed to the god Molech. Well, the Jews, every conscientious, faithful Jew, abhorred that concept. So what they did was they, over time, made that place, that area, a garbage dump. And because it was a garbage dump, you would always have fires that burned, and that kind of taught the eternal nature of it. It would never run out of fuel. But also because it was garbage, you would also have worms, maggots there, and they would never run out of fuel or out of food because they could constantly have something always that was decomposing to feast off of. So this image is one of filth and of decay and of death. So Gehenna, or hell, is someplace that's repulsive. Again, someplace you'd never want to go. The third image is outer darkness. This image is brought up in Matthew chapter 18, chapter 22, and also in chapter 25. Most of the time we would think there's not so much wrong with darkness. I mean, I can handle darkness. But here we're talking about complete darkness. And not only complete darkness, but isolating darkness. And I think when you've got this complete darkness, then you've got these feelings of disorientation, the feelings of helplessness, the feelings of being lost, and again, of complete isolation. It's not a place that you want to go. It's not a picture that's pretty, that's appealing. And then the last image, the fourth image that I want to talk to you about, is weeping and gnashing of teeth. Now, this image occurs along with outer darkness. So you've got these three passages of Matthew 8, Matthew 22, and Matthew 25. This just simply gives the idea of hell being a place of punishment, a place of pain, a place of suffering. I mean, as a minister, I've been with people in the very last stages of their life who are in incredible pain. And when they're in that level of pain, they grit their teeth because the pain is so intense. Well, that weeping and gnashing of teeth, that grinding of teeth, just illustrates how intensely these things are going to be felt. Again, when you put all four of these images together, you're looking at a place of torment, a place of punishment, most definitely a place that we don't want to be. So the second fact that I want to talk to you about is the purpose of hell. Now, just because God is loving, it doesn't mean that He loves everything. When you look in the Old Testament and when you look in the New Testament, there are indeed things which the Lord hates. He hates murder. He hates pride. He hates lying. He hates arrogance. He hates sexual immorality. And interestingly, the fact that God hates them should be something welcome to us. Let me explain what I mean. When God is a loving God, it means that He's going to hate sinful activities. And in a sense, that's very comforting to us because I think that everyone has the idea, the concept of justice, of equity in their lives, in their hearts. They understand that people who do things that are wrong shouldn't get away with it. So this is good news that people who have been mistreated are going to be avenged. They're going to be vindicated. And they're vindicated by the fact that the people who did wrong are going to be punished. That's what a loving God does. So the purpose of hell is a purpose of punishment for everyone who turns away from Him. Why? Because that's what a just God does. And moreover, not only is it what a just God does, but I maintain, and I think it's a very safe assumption, that this is what all people who love justice on the earth want to see happen. They don't want to see unrighteousness and wickedness never punished. In both Matthew 25 and in Revelation 20, it specifically tells us that hell was prepared for the devil and his angels. So this everlasting means of punishment, this everlasting fire, is a way in which God is going to vindicate everything that's evil in the earth. Consider this point. Paul in 1 Timothy chapter 1 verses 8 through 10 says that the law, and he was speaking about the old law, but it really could apply to any law in general. But law is given to punish the disobedient. Law is given to try to make sure that the disobedient do not keep on being disobedient. That's kind of the same purpose of hell. God informs his people about hell. We talk to people about hell. Preachers stand up and they preach about hell. Why? Because that's a deterrent that hopefully is going to prevent people from sinning. The existence of hell, the existence of punishment for sin, keeps many, not all, but it keeps many from continuing in sin. And that's what the purpose of hell is for. Third, the duration of hell. In the introduction, I talked about there are a lot of people who believe that hell is kind of this one moment of torment and then you're just gone. You're annihilated and there's not going to be any more punishment. But guys, that just simply is not what the New Testament taught. It's just not what Jesus taught. He said in Revelation 20 and verse 10 that the torment of hell will last day and night forever. So that means the suffering is never going to end. It's never going to be interrupted. Remember what I said earlier in Mark chapter 9, where the worm does not die and where the fire is not quenched. The worm never runs out of food in a garbage dump. The fires never stop burning because they never lack for fuel, people throwing trash in. It's just imagery that's intended to say, this is not going to be for a moment. This is going to be for eternity. When we leave this physical realm, all of us understand that our bodies are getting older, they're decaying, and we will one day die because everyone around us is doing that. But when we die, we're released from this physical body. We enter into a whole new realm of existence. And when that happens, that existence is permanent. It'll never go away. We'll never die again. And the eternity that we exist in will either exist in heaven or will exist in hell. But the fact is, we will continue to exist. One more idea about this. In Matthew chapter 25 and verse 46, it brings up in one verse the existence of heaven and the existence of hell. And the interesting part is it uses the same word, everlasting or eternal, depending on which English version that you use, to describe both of them. So if you believe in heaven, where you're going to be in the glory of God forever and ever, then you've also got to believe in hell, because what is said about one is said about the other. Now, lastly, is the isolation of hell. Because of my particular line of work, I've had a lot of people express to me that if their loved ones, maybe it's their mom or dad or their husband or their wife, if they're in hell, then they don't want to go to heaven themselves. They don't want to have part of them in hell while they themselves are in heaven. They all want to be together. So let's think about that just for a moment. I most definitely can understand the thought behind that. I really do. In fact, if I were put in that same moment with those same kinds of emotions, I would probably, at least there'd be a little part of me that would feel the exact same way. However, the New Testament really helps us with this, because in Luke chapter 16 and verses 19 through 31, we have the account, a parable of the rich man and Lazarus. And while Jesus is telling a parable, so while it is meant to instruct us from a physical point of view, it also has biblical truth in it, and we shouldn't forget about that. Now, the biblical truth in this account is that after the rich man died, he went to a place of torment. Now, he went to Hades, and maybe one of these days we'll do a video on the difference between life and then death and then Hades and then heaven and hell, because the Bible does clearly speak of an intermediate state called Hades. So in Luke chapter 16, they went to Hades, and this Hadean realm has two parts to it. The rich man goes into torment, while Lazarus goes into paradise, or Abraham's bosom. Now, the important point to remember is that the rich man pled for mercy. In fact, he pled that Lazarus could come and just cool him off, just take the tip of his finger and dip it in water and touch his tongue because he's in torment in this flame. And when he learned that no relief could ever be given to him in that situation, he said something absolutely critical in Luke 16, 27 and 28, and I want to read it for you now. Then he said, I beg you, therefore, Father, that you would send him to my father's house, for I have 5 brothers, that he may testify to them, lest they also come to this place of torment. And Abraham said to him, they have Moses and the prophets, let them hear them. The crucial thing to remember is that this rich man, and listen very carefully, did not want company. He did not want his loved ones to be in hell with him. Look, I'm not the judge of anyone, but if you believe that your loved one is in hell, they don't want you there with them. If you're correct, they do not want you there with them. The rich man was willing to do anything to try and warn his loved ones to never ever come to a place like hell. Now that we've opened the door a little bit about eternity, everyone has 2 choices. They've got the choice to be in heaven, or they've got the choice to be in hell. So very quickly, I just want to suggest to you, as far as heaven is concerned, Revelation chapter 22 and verse 17, almost the end of the New Testament, as it relates to going to heaven, the Spirit and the bride say, come. As it relates to hell, the rich man in Luke chapter 16, which we just looked at, said, don't ever come here. You don't want to be here. Why did the Lord spend more time talking about hell than he did heaven? It's because he came from the realm of the spiritual. He came from the realm that's beyond this physical world. He knew what's there. He knows what awaits for people who are going to be disobedient to him. And he knows that he is the only way to move from the broad path that's going to lead to destruction to the righteous path that's going to lead to eternal life. So you need to take the warnings of Jesus seriously. I need to take the warnings of Jesus seriously because it's laid out for us in the New Testament. It's not like we have to wonder. We know what hell is going to be like, and we know all of these different facts about hell that should be compelling us to make the right decision. Life comes down to the decisions that you make and the way that you act on those decisions. We at the Luke 287 Church of Christ want you to act righteously. We want you to obey God. Jesus always leaves the choice up to us, and therefore we have to leave the choice up to you. But we've presented this video so that you can know what the Bible says about hell. And you can know it is not a place that you want to be. So if you have liked this video, if you've gotten something out of it, then make sure you like it and share it to other people who may be interested in knowing what lies ahead after this life is over. More importantly, subscribe to the channel so that you'll always have notifications of new content that comes along. If there's some subject that you would like for us to study for you, then drop us a line at info@lawofliberty.com, and we'll be happy to do everything that we can to simply but objectively present what the Bible says about a topic that you're interested in. So thank you for your time. We always appreciate it, and we always hope that we'll see you again next time.